Hello, and welcome to Big Talk, your political program that helps you understand what is going on in the polity in Nigeria, in Africa, around the world. My name is Ubong Osoro, and I am your host. Big Talk holds every weekday on Global TV, DSTV channels 365 and StarTimes channels 276. Today we have a wonderful discussion as we continue to beam searchlights into the life of former Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari. But before we go ahead, my colleague did a wonderful report on some of the tributes that are still pouring in as regards honoring the former president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, who died on Sunday in London at the age of 82. Let's listen to this report, and when we get back, I'll introduce our guest for today, then we'll go right into our conversation.
The United Nations described Buhari as a steadfast voice for regional peace, with Secretary General Antonio Guterres highlighting his role in the fight against terrorism and regional stability. Africa's top institutions came strong praise. The African Union called him a resolute leader, while Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, said he was a statesman committed to democracy and regional cooperation. African heads of state joined in mourning. South Africa's Cyril Ramaphosa called him a pillar of African conscience, and Kenya's William Ruto described him as a towering statesman. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed praised his discipline and moral strength. From the Middle East and Asia, leaders expressed admiration. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi hailed Buhari as a steadfast friend of India, while Saudi Arabia's King Salman and Crown Prince acknowledged his role in promoting Islamic solidarity and security. Western governments also offered condolences. The United States mission in Nigeria praised Buhari's commitment to public trust. China called him a visionary partner, and the European Union credited him for his support of multilateralism and democratic principles. Late President Muhammadu Buhari was buried on Tuesday in his hometown of Daura with full military honors. While views on his leadership at home remain mixed, international tribute reflects his stature as a respected statesman on the global stage. Mukhtar Qasim, reporting for Global Television.
All right, so former President Muhammadu Buhari means a lot of things to a lot of people. To some, he was that military, steadfast Nigerian, patriotic, very sincere Nigerian, somebody who wanted to see Nigeria work at all means. And to some people see that Buhari maybe squandered the golden opportunity. Somebody who was military head of state in Nigeria, 1983. For 3 years he was in the saddle as the military head of state, and also came back in 2015. So from 2015 to 2023, he held sway as a civilian president, an honor that rarely comes by. Since 1999, we've had just about 4 persons that, or 5 that actually saddled that responsibility of leading Nigeria. 1999, we had Olusegun Obasanjo. In 2007, we had the late Yar'Adua. We had Goodluck Jonathan. In 2015, we had Muhammadu Buhari. And in 2023, we had Bola Ahmed Tinubu. How did Muhammadu Buhari utilize his time in power? 2015 to 2023. What kind of leader was he? Those are some of the discussions we want to be having today on the show. And that will be joining me via Zoom from Cross River. We're going to be having Castro Ezema, who is actually a former special advisor on education to the government of Cross River State, and also a public affairs analyst. Castro will be joining us live from Cross River State to help us make sense of this discussion. What can we talk about Buhari in review 2015 to 2023? Welcome to the discussion. Big Talk. My name is Ubong Osoro. After this short break, we have Castro join us live on the program. If you're just joining us, this is Big Talk on Global TV, a program that tries to highlight the things that are happening in Nigeria and make sense by bringing quality analysis to the discourse. Today we have Castro Ezema joining us, former special advisor on education to the government of Cross River State. Hello Castro, how are you? Castro, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's good to talk to you after a long time. How are you?
Yeah,
are you mourning late President Muhammadu Buhari? Former president, I mean.
Yes, we are all in the morning mood.
All right. So who was former President Muhammadu Buhari to you?
Well, a former leader of this country that has paid his dues, served as the military president of Nigeria, and then became a democratically elected president of our dear country. And he's a man Nigerians give a very big thumbs up that he was going to change things around. I saw him as a good man and is corruption free. So the Nigerians went en masse. Remember, he defeated a sitting president when he contested elections against President Goodluck Jonathan. So he's a great guy, and I must say that it's a big loss to Nigeria. He's been there, he's humble as a person.
All right.
He's a good man.
All right, you know, I remember very well that you were in government around that time. You were essay to governor of Cross River, Governor Ben Ayade at that time, 2015, and around that time. So, talking about the politics of President Buhari, apart from being a statesman, you've mentioned integrity, yeah, people have talked about it. Was he able to play? What kind of politics was he playing? And for somebody who was in opposition, I know you were in opposition, how do you see him from that opposition lens?
Well, as a Cross Riverian under his leadership, I must say that then in the South region, he really took care of Cross River State by way of appointment. Remember, during his time as president, especially in the first term, we had chief of naval staff. We had the Chief Justice of the Federation. We have the head of civil service of the Federation. We had two powerful ministers, the Nigeria Delta Minister and one other. Cross River State was the first state he came to set the ball rolling in terms of infrastructure when he came to lay the foundation for the superhighway and deep sea port. So it's one state he didn't play joke with, even though we were in opposition. So we enjoyed his magnanimous goodwill, you know. But as things went on, remember during his time, things became a bit tight for Nigeria. We started facing economy. Remember, we had economic meltdown. It was a global thing, which affected Nigeria too.
Okay, just before you conclude the thoughts and talk about the economy and all of that, I'd just like to remind you that during the time of President Buhari, we had Walter Onoge, you remember, the former CJN, who had been from Cross River from BRC, was removed during that time. And also during that time, we had, you know, people talked about the Chief Justice that was removed, and people talked about the president not doing enough. And I will also give you more names after that. Do you think the president was so concerned about South-South, or was it just politicking? Because we saw the former Senate president who wasn't really in support of the president in 2015, you know, in 2019, coming to say he was supporting the president, you know, and all of that. And the president finally made him a minister. Let's talk about the politics of Buhari concerning the South-South region first, before we go to economy.
Remember that he contested against somebody from South-South when he emerged in the first term. President Goodluck Jonathan was president, and who comes from this region of South-South. and everybody in the South region didn't want to join the APC. Almost the bigger political gladiators, sitting state governors, did not support. And he said the one in the South. No, he didn't win anything in the South. But when he became president, he was, like I say, magnanimous to the South region, especially Cross River State. The removal of Walter Onnoghen San is something that affected Cross Riverians. It wasn't good. Remember that this removal was close to a second term of the election. So there would have been insinuation, there would have been some kind of malicious suspicion against Mr. Onnoghen, who was unceremoniously removed as CGN. That didn't go well with Cross Riverians and average Nigerian, that such a man, you were taking him out like that. That was very, very terrible, to say the least. And just like you said, there were other persons, they were called Obomobla, who was also removed from office, Winifred Oyoeta, who was removed from office, and all of that. This is a topic for another day, to a point where we have learned our lessons as Cross Riverians, that we must wake up to stand by ourselves in times of power, in times of jubilation, in times of sorrow and all of that. So we need to grow up beyond pettiness in our politics. We need to put some level of hygiene in the way we play our politics in Cross River State and the nation at large. So President Buhari really want to feel that Cross River didn't give him vote. He got 37% votes in Cross River State. He was happy that at least he scored above the percentage required per state to have emerged as president. I'm sure the political guys then did not see Cross River as the state where he would win. But all they needed was 25%. But he got 37.5%.
Right, AC, former AC. I remember a time when former President Buhari came to Cross River State to inaugurate the superhighway and inaugurate the deep sea port. What's the state of that project at the moment, sir?
Well, we know that there were lots of issues that surrounded that project. Before you venture into such a project, it's a project that needs funding, not from Cross River. How much do we have at the state? It's a funding that needs the federal government to appropriate funds to it. You needed to look at the environmental impact assessment, the EIA of the area. This groundwork wasn't done. But like we know, government is a continuum. Under the leadership of Apostle Senator Prince Bassett too, you can see that he is trying to continue from where the former governor stopped. He wants to ensure that the deep sea port is in place. You can see him in the continuation of the cargo airport at Okudu. So a lot of this is being done and continued by the current administration, all thanks to the sweet prince himself that is not keeping behind projects that began from previous administrations. The administration beyond former Governor Yadi, there are the things the governor, is trying to complete.
All right, so the next sector I'd like us to dive in is the sector where you served the former governor of Cross River as an ace, education. Under former President Buhari, for more than 1 year, cumulatively, schools were on strike. And you were essay on education to the former governor at that time. Let's talk about Buhari and his investment, his legacy as far as education is concerned. What do you think about him in a sector where you serve, and so many persons online said you did very well in that sector. In that sector, during that time, how do you think Buhari, was he interested in education? Was he looking into the demands of ASU? We had the ASU strike, the 8-month strike, the 3-month strike, lots of strikes during that period. What do you have to talk about that?
Let me say this, a lot of the persons that work under President, that work with him, were a bunch of failures. Let me use that other word and do very blunt. President Buhari, but when he gave them free hands, every budget that was needed for every MPAs, President Buhari released. Whether you are in APC or not, he treated everybody equally. the ministers for Ngige sat under him. Ngige didn't handle the issue of the ASU and even NLC strikes very well. He treated those matters, sensitive matters, with levity. That wasn't good. So the education under late President Buhari was not palatable. That I will put the blame squarely on the ministers who were in charge. Again, I know that the buck stopped on the table of Mr. President. Education is an aspect that is quite sensitive. That's why it is on the exclusive list. So it flows from top to bottom, like the late president will always say. So I didn't like the handling of education. Education is so sensitive. In its time, the budgetary provision for education did not meet the UNESCO benchmark. So they didn't appropriately, the percentage of budget that was needed for educational system. This is one system that had fallen down even when President Buhari came on board. And they didn't want to holistically look at the educational sector of our dear country. You remember, he came on board when the security was already creeping in, the Chibok girls, lots of things he promised Nigerians to tackle headlong. Insecurity, education was one of them, but let me say that he didn't do well in education, and I put that blame squarely on those he called to handle the educational sector. I wasn't impressed as a special advisor then on education. I looked at my job schedule and I went all out. You must not look at a friend or somebody to compensate the appointment as education minister. No. You don't allow merit.
So what you are saying, Mr. Castro, if I can get you right, is that late former President Buhari failed as regards education. That's what you are saying.
Yes, his ministers then failed him.
Oh, his ministers failed, not the president himself.
His ministers failed him. When I was special advisor on education, I didn't need to fail, because if I failed, yes, they would have put the blame on the former governor Ayade. I had to work to show myself approved, and thereby, by extension, Cross River State, doing well. Remember that in Cross River State, for instance, the out-of-school children, that's very negative percentage. It was positive before we left office, and that's a result of the fact that I went out entering streets to pick out-of-school children. So the ministers then they really failed, and well, like I said,
I don't know how logical the assessment is, but I leave it to you. It's your opinion, Mr. Castro, because if the minister has failed the former president and he didn't do anything about it, aren't people, isn't it right people to say that the former president failed? Because come on, he appointed them, and if the minister failed as you claimed, so some people can assume that the former president Buhari failed as regards education. I just need a clarification, maybe a yes or no, or one or two take on that, so we can move to the next subject.
The board stopped on the table of Mr. President, and the President Buhari that you and I know, if you were alive and there was failure, he will certainly say he take responsibilities. Even before, when he was leaving office, he told Nigerians that in the areas where I failed, the areas where I have hurt Nigerians, I apologize. There was one news that made the rounds. It's not been confirmed if it's true or not, that the wife told Nigerians that the husband on his dying bed asked her to apologize to Nigerians if he has hurt them in any way. So he will always take responsibility. That aspect, we didn't enjoy it. As one who is passionate about education, I didn't feel the impact as a person, and I think Nigerians also did not feel the impact. Do we want to talk about health? That's a subject for another day, because if it's about health, Nigerians shouldn't be heading into UK and other foreign land for health care. We have manpower, we have everything, but we have deliberately refused to fix our health system. Reason why our people are running out. It's not interesting. When the late president died, you could hear that his nephew, Mamandara, was hospitalized there. the former military president, Abdulsalami Abubakar, also told Nigeria that he went to the same hospital where President Buhari, passed on. So this for me is not a funny thing. In education, the ministers, if vast majority of the ministers are set under President Buhari, had their children go abroad to school. Something definitely was wrong in Nigeria for their children to go abroad. We'll be inundated with messages from Facebook, pictures, videos, and so on.
Thank you.
Each of these persons celebrate their children that have graduated abroad. Isn't this a clear indication?
Yeah, thank you. I remember maybe the picture you're trying to talk about is the former education minister whose children were graduating during pictures came out allegedly that the children were graduating during ASU strike and all of that. But let's stay on health, because you've talked about health. This is a president that in the first 6 months of coming into power had some health challenges. In fact, there's an interview where he mentioned that he's never been that ill in his life, So immediately became president of Nigeria, started having health issues, and spent more than 6 months, of his time outside the shores of Nigeria. Let's talk about the fact that the president died in London and had to be retrieved and brought to Nigeria to be buried in Daura. The investments of former President Muhammadu Buhari in health, let's rate it. In your opinion, you were active during that period. Sometimes you even had to comment on the traveling and all of that. What do you think about him constantly leaving the shores of Nigeria to seek medical care outside Nigeria? Was he leading by example?
No, certainly. Even though we are not supposed to talk negatively about the dead, as a lot of people would say, but being objective here, it wasn't fine. If it was fine, he will not travel abroad. The Aso Rock Villa Clinic should be one very place that should be very, very okay to take care of people's health, especially the first family. There's nothing wrong flying those experts abroad here, but we have the medical equipment to cater for this health arrangement. No. So it shows clearly that something is definitely wrong with our health system. The percentage, even though we cannot get that here, the vast majority of our medical doctors and other medical practitioners will always seek running abroad to continue their trade. It shows clearly that something is fundamentally wrong with our health system. Every big man in Nigeria privileged to occupy public office will run abroad. The common people are the ones who stay behind the country. They suffer and die. Visit our hospitals. They are shadows of themselves, and this is not good as a country. We have the money, we have the manpower, we have everything it takes to fix our health system. But I give you the analysis. During President Obasanjo's tenure, his wife died in Marbella Clinic in Spain. She didn't see any good clinic or hospital. That was a clinic that she passed on. So we do not even have hospital that would have taken care of her need. The former Dora Akili, remember the NAFDAC woman?
She died abroad. DG of NAFDAC.
The former DG of NAFDAC, she died abroad. In Cross River State, the former Senate president from Obamaniku died abroad, kept for years before he was found for burial recently. We can go on and on until the late President Muhammadu Buhari, who died in London. So, why all of this? You see the irony. They tell you that they will stop the importation of food into Nigeria, but they will not stop Nigerians, especially the big men, going abroad for medical treatment. So what's the irony? You stop the importation of rice and other things to come into Nigeria. Why would you stop Nigerians from flying abroad for medical help? It's not bad for people to fly abroad for medical help, but it is becoming a thing that is common amongst the ruling and the political class. It shows that maybe we are deliberately not fixing our health system. And for not doing that, it's going a long way to affecting Nigerians. The common man won't be able to afford traveling abroad. You know the cost to go to UK. on flight alone, transportation, let alone going to pay the bills. If it's true that President Buhari were paying £3,000 on a daily basis while he was there, which ordinary person can afford that? How many plots of land do you sell to have money to fly abroad? So I want to call on our leaders to please, they should deliberately put education, put health on the front burner and see how this can be fixed.
Okay, so for a man that claimed that former late President Muhammadu Buhari ran a campaign in 2015 on integrity. For a man that claimed he had to even borrow money, get a bank draft to be able to purchase forms and all of that. He didn't have money. He was a man of little means, and so you track the spending, you track the amount it takes to travel out of Nigeria, the family in London, the children schooling in London. Does it meet the personality? Because it seems Nigerian politicians, which you are a politician, Nigerian politicians present a personality to the public. Oh, I'm humble, I eat corn with you. We see that during electioneering period, you go around and all of this, but immediately they get into offices, the change. How can the common people relate, the common person relate to the fact that the politicians do not use the same hospitals with the common people, and their children do not go to schools in the same schools as the common Nigerian? How do you relate that to the politics? Just in 3 minutes before we go for a short break, Mr. Castro.
Well, like I said, it's sad that they come on board and do things the opposite. President Buhari was seen as a man of proven integrity, and I must say that he lived and died with it. A lot of people who visited his Kaduna and Daura home. It's a man who never lived in extravagant, who never had an extravagant lifestyle. Most of the things he lived with, he didn't change them. Even when people tried to say they were bringing to replace those things, he refused. So that he gave to me. He lived a simple life. Again, I go back to those he brought on board, that he didn't have the will to even fire them, was the aspect he didn't do well. These persons failed me. A lot of them failed Mr. President, the late president, in their duties. He surrounded himself with a lot of persons that were not telling him the truth, that there was mere psychopaths around him. That's where I put the blame to. They didn't sit with him one-on-one to say, this is the reality in our dear country. I think there was a time. Yes. So,
Mr. Castro, we'll come back for this discussion, but let's go for a short break. Thank you so much, Castro Isema, a former special advisor on education to the Cross River State government, for staying with us. Please stay with us. Let's go for a short break, and when we're back, Big Talk continues on Global TV, DSTV channels 365. My name is Ubong Musar. All right, so former President Muhammadu Buhari that was laid to rest in Daura yesterday means a lot of things to a lot of people. To some persons, people say Muhammadu Buhari spent so much money on infrastructure. In fact, some persons claim he spent more money on infrastructure than any other Nigerian president ever. To some persons claim he took more loans than any other Nigerian president in history, and to them that didn't really go down well. So former President Muhammadu Buhari means different things to different people. Today we are still looking at Buhari in review 2015 to 2023, and joining us via Zoom from Cross River State to help us make sense of this discussion is Castro Ezema, former special advisor on education to the Cross River State government and also a public affairs commentator. Mr. Castro, are you there?
Yes.
All right, so let's talk about infrastructure. We saw some legacy projects completed by President Muhammadu Buhari during his time. I'd like to mention the Abuja Kaduna Rail project. I'd like to mention Lagos Ibadan, Warri Itapo Rail project, and the second Niger bridge. Some persons say he did so well concerning infrastructure, but some Nigerians have also talked about the cost of getting foreign loans to back infrastructure, and it didn't really translate to the common man at the end of the day. Under the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari 2015 to 2023, what do you think or how do you assess him concerning his infrastructural strides?
Well, the ones you mentioned, they are true. What do you mean? The ones he completed, they are true. A lot more that is being completed in the current administration started with him. He tried in infrastructure, but I want to tell you that it's not commensurate with the amount we hear they invested in infrastructure. It's not commensurate altogether. As much as a lot of people want to always refer me to during the President Goodluck Jonathan's time, why didn't you fix the South roads? We are still battling. He didn't do well for us in the South region, just like former President Jonathan didn't. To Akwa Road, the Calabar to road is still in terrible shape. The Biase Trunk A Road, to Lukman to Biase and part of Okoja Trunk A Road, still in terrible shape. Benway, still in terrible shape. Lots of roads you have. So the amount that is quoted is not commensurate with what they claim to have been done in that part of infrastructure. So road network, it didn't roll. The federal housing schemes, we didn't see a whole lot because this is not cushioning the effect of the housing. There's still a big problem. People are battling to pay rent here and there. So the part of the federal housing scheme we had was going to be up during his administration. We didn't feel it. We didn't see that impact. So overall, let me say that Mr. President, the late president, former president, again, the minister, aside the few roads you mentioned that they were able to fix, they also they're failing a lot of the projects they didn't complete compared to the amount borrowed, huge amount of money.
Aspects a lot of people scored the former administration very high is social intervention. We had trader money, we had Empower, we had school feeding programs. A lot of social intervention programs was rolled out by the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari, especially through the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. I'd like that you talk to Nigerians or your assessment concerning deployments of funds into those social intervention programs, trader money, Empower, school feeding programs, and different other schemes that were pushed by the former administration of President Muhammadu Buhari to get to the poor. Did they really get to the poorest of the poor, those intervention programs? You were in that, at least as an essay on education, you could talk about your experience concerning the school feeding program.
The school feeding program was a lofty idea by the former administration. That alone attracted, is something that is supposed to take the heart of school children. There are children that will leave the streets to school because of that particular aspect. They started along the line, it didn't continue again. Part of most of these social intervention projects were hijacked by even the political class. You want to talk about, the trainer money, they tried their best. It was just like taking hot water into an ocean. The impact wasn't really there, but the idea was fantastic. Just like it didn't trickle down to those who were supposed to get it. There was this other money they gave out. One of these funds that were given out, a lot of people are paying, they are deducting from people's accounts these days. They are repaying. Like those who benefited from these monies didn't know that they were all these monies were loans that needed to repayment. They did not give explicit narration as to why this money was given. So some people were just called upon, submit XYZ, they submitted, credited their account, and today they are deducting. A lot of persons are paying. That's why they are calling on the current administration to write off those loans that were given to most of these Nigerians. So one was the aspect of explaining this in details to the common man. The trader money was supposed to go to traders at the rural level. The then Vice President, Yemi Osibanjo, tried to push through because it looks like his office was overseeing this part of the scheme. So the idea was right. They started in well. There were those in Empower that got tablets. They were engaged in different sectors of Nigerian economy. At some point, they were dropped. So I felt that it's something where they needed to look at these persons, train and retrain, and get them absorbed into the workforce of the country. But these persons were all dropped. And you know, when somebody starts working and earning some naira, at some point you are dropping the person. So the end point of it, the vision behind it, and how it was going to end was not very good. It didn't end well. The idea of bringing about this was absolutely okay, but it didn't end well.
Is the aspect of insecurity. Remember, former President Muhammadu Buhari in 2014 campaigned on the strata that Nigeria can be better as regards corruption. He's come to fight corruption, insecurity. He has the experience. He's been saddled with the responsibility before, and he has the military training to help Nigeria tackle insecurity. So from 2014. 2015, 2023. Let's talk about the security condition of Nigeria during that period. 8 years. What do you think? How do you think former President Muhammadu Buhari handled the security of Nigeria during his time in office?
He gave timelines that if he was elected president, the insecurity was going to stop. It didn't stop. It continued. Kidnappings, Boko Haram insurgents, militancy, none of these things stopped. It was on and on and on and on. So, Nigerians, like I said, saw a man that was going to stop corruption. But you know, the system as a civilian president is different from a military president. He could meet somebody, arrest somebody who would have been alleged to have been involved in one form of corruption or the other. You will have the judiciary, the person will go to seek redress in court, and court will give verdict. Even though, yes, there were points where they didn't look at, Mr. President did not honor certain court verdicts. That rule of law thing was something that had some cracks under his administration. So most of the things they promised Nigerians didn't come to play. Remember that he battled to win second term because Nigerians didn't find it funny that, oh, you say you were going to do this, and these things you didn't get them achieved, they were not achieved. Again, I refer you back to the handlers, the people he brought on board to assist him. They didn't do well. Most of them failed the late president. They failed him. They failed him altogether. And it doesn't sound well at all. The people who were brought on board, they entrusted them. Like I told you, the late President Buhari gave every of his appointees the level playing ground to work. He gave them the approvals needed. There was nobody around him that would say he did not have funding. He gave funding to everyone. But sad to say, most of them went back to sleep and did not work for the benefit of our dear country.
All right, so quickly, I like that we touch press freedom. You have been involved with the press. You understand what it means to have interaction. Reports have it that the Cybercrime Act of 2015, some people believe that it was a legal framework to actually arrest and detain bloggers, critics, and maybe some journalists. And we also had in 2019, I remember, I think we had a discussion around that time concerning the social media regulation bill. We had the hate speech bill that actually sparked outrage concerning internet censorship, and we had the ban of a social media microblogging site. I don't want to mention the name of the site, but you know what I'm talking about. So we had that ban come into effect. How did former President Muhammadu Buhari handle criticism, which was a major thing as regards his administration, because a lot of people criticized him, used social media and used some praise to actually criticize him. So during his tenure as a civilian president, was he able to manage criticisms very well? Please, I'd like that you respond to that.
Then we had information minister, I think that was Lai Mohammed. Yes, Lai Mohammed did not handle that aspect well. During the administration, we had full-blown social media. Not when during Obasanjo, Lady Adua, and some part of President Jonathan. During President Buhari, social media was fully in place. It was everywhere. You get to read breaking news about Nigeria on social media before you hear on print and modern vocal media that we have. So these things were there, and the Lai Mohammed did not engage journalists very, very well. He didn't do that well. This is about engagement.
President Buhari, because in the history of Nigerian President Buhari didn't really engage journalists, especially when he was in Nigeria. We saw more media interaction when he leaves the country, but I like that you finished the thoughts you were on.
Yeah, so no, like you just have to conclude that for me. There was no engagement with the media, and the aspect of chasing some media guys, some bloggers, some journalists, getting to arrest them we didn't have that ground for journalism to thrive in this country. Like some people will say there's freedom of speech, but there's no freedom after the speech. So these are the aspects. But let me also say that the journalism in Nigeria, the media guys in Nigeria, they are doing well. If there were those who had feeble minds, I'm sure they would not run away and would not be having true journalism in our dear country again. I want to salute them in spite of the stress that came up during then, and it's still on. The information minister was not engaging. If he had time to sit down with these journalists occasionally or routinely, they will be able to tell him how they feel. The media guys know exactly what Nigerians are passing through, and when you have a media pally, they'll be able to say these things the way they are, and whoever is in charge will get these things, fix them, and take them up to Mr. President to say, this is what I've heard from the media people, because they are the ones that are down here. They are feeling the impact and they are noting them down. They are trained in this aspect to ensure that they get records, and most of them will always do right. So when they criticize government shouldn't take offense. Most of the journalists they were chasing after were those who even assisted President Buhari to win the election. They were those who criticized the former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan as at the time. So that aspect, Lai Mohammed didn't handle issues well. Again, Was he qualified?
You
Was
served as an
he
essay on
someone?
education to the former governor of Cross River State. Well, you were in the opposition. Let's talk about Muhammadu Buhari handling of the opposition, because immediately he came into power, there was a review that was done, and we had to see the office of the former NSA, you know, Olisa Metu, Danzuki, and a lot of other people were mentioned as regards embezzlement, as regards allegation concerning bordering of financial misconduct. And after some time, some persons came out with claims that it seemed that administration was targeting key figures in the opposition. What was the state of the opposition at the time when the APC came into power in 2015, courtesy of that marriage between the CPC, ACN, and all of the other parties that made up the APC, and Muhammadu Buhari flying the flag of the APC at the time? How was former President Muhammadu Buhari relating to those of you who were in opposition?
Well, those of us who were in opposition during this time, we had a healthy atmosphere with President Buhari, especially from Cross River State. I highlighted the achievements we got under him, or the benefit for having him as a president.
But you know, maybe you people had an agreement that you were later going to move, because eventually you people moved ship from your governor. I know maybe you were not a member of the party, but your governor moved from the PDP to the APC.
Yeah, that was later on. During the campaigns for President Buhari's first term, Cross River worked hard and tirelessly for the PDP, and that's why PDP won. I give you the statistics that the APC had 37.5% from Cross River State. So you can see that over 60% went to the PDP. So it was later on, as a state, the governor saw that there was need to socket to the center so that we get the deliverables into the state. And that's when he moved. And you can see that his movement is something like that was prophetic. That movement was well ordered. And today, Cross River State is fully APC. Nigeria at the center is APC. But beyond political parties, like I would say, after election, it's time for governance. We keep the party aside to govern. The manifestos you reeled out.
How did former President Muhammadu Buhari relate with the opposition? What was his relationship to those in the opposition?
No, it was fine. There were some, like Olisa Metu and the former NSA you have mentioned, who were jailed for one or two crimes they committed. Remember that the president didn't just take them there. They had court orders that allowed that to happen. During his time, political parties rose from the number it was to about 97 political parties. He didn't chase after political parties from gathering. There were no political parties during his time. There were a lot of people who were running elections from other platforms. If he did not do that, there is no way a Peter Obi will be running elections under Labour Party. So I give it to him that he allowed the opposition to thrive. They even took him to court. The matters terminated in the Supreme Court. In the election proper and the politicking of their country, he did not go after those who were running elections with him fiercely. There was a good ground for people to run elections with him, and I give it to him. He did well because political parties were there on ground. And
lastly, I'd like to engage you on the core mantra which former President Muhammadu Buhari, late former president, used to come into power, which was anti-corruption, the fight against corruption. How did President Muhammadu Buhari fight corruption during his time? But before then, let me just give you some statistics. We had recovered billions of naira, millions of dollars looted from previous regimes, especially the Abacha loots kept coming back from the UK, from the US, and some other transfers. We had the whistleblower policy in 2016 that encouraged Nigerian citizens to report corrupt people, and will get a 2.5 around 5% reward from recovered funds. We had the treasury accounts open and all of that. But right under that same presidency, allegations of NDDC probe misuse of funds, some say 80 billion allegations and all of that. It's in the public. People could see that. We had allegations against Humanitarian Affairs Ministry. We had the EFCC chairman Ibrahim Mago at the time, allegations, and of recent we are seeing revelations, coming, from what it seems to have been misappropriation of funds or even embezzlement from the CBN governor that served under former President Muhammadu Buhari. Talking about Godwin Emefiele. So for a man that embodied, at least to him, you've said he had a modest house in Kaduna and in Katsina and all of that. Was Buhari really fighting corruption? Corruption was supposed to be at the center, the fulcrum of his administration, 2015 to 2023. Did former President Muhammadu Buhari fight corruption? Castro Ezema.
Yeah, he fought corruption, and corruption also fought back. Remember that most of these people who were tried, they went to court to get several injunctions. The judiciary is an aspect, and this is the man who was not in the military system or to become a dictator. He was in a full-blown democracy where people went to court. There were lawyers who represented those who allegedly were caught in corruption. So they went to court, got court injunction that kept them off either investigation or being jailed for one form of corruption or the other. So he came up with a clear template to fight corruption, but unfortunately, corruption fought back, and we all saw the happenings. We got looted funds. Where are the funds? What did they use the funds to do? Like jovially right then, that they got looted funds. Some people in the government re-looted the funds. Thereby, for me, I just simply call that a luta continua. So there was a continuation of looting even in his administration. And as a person, it's not he, like I say, is not a corrupt man. But most of the people that worked under him, or some of the people that worked under him, were the ones that were corrupt. Even though most of these people have not been tried. So I could just use the word allegedly corrupt, because we saw it was there.
Right, thank you so much, Castro Ezema. But before we go, I'd like to, in one word, how do you describe the late president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, who was civilian president from 2015 to 2023? In one word. In one word.
He was a statesman.
Statesman.
He was a humble man.
All right, and that's the size of our show for tonight. People picked up on Global TV 365 DSTV. Thank you so much, Castro Ezema, for coming on the show. Former special advisor on education to the Cross River State Governor 2015 to 2023. Thank you for coming on the program and sharing your thoughts on Buhari in review. People, that's the size of our program. Remember that this program comes up every weekday on Global TV channel 365 on DSTV. Do have for yourself a wonderful evening. My name is Ubongo Soro in Abuja. Bye for now.